very simply to say that I met Raamon a number of years ago through his book, and I will just say I find Raamon is just an extraordinary person with extraordinary experience, and it's rare to find a person who has made meditation part of his life work. And in terms of what I've learned from him about um, meditation generally, but just the effect of meditation on your body and just how the benefits of meditation across the board. And I felt it would be an extraordinary benefit to this group to hear what he has to say. So, with that as just a very simple introduction, I'd like to introduce to all of you Raamon Newman.
Thank you very much, Michael and Mary Grace, for having me here and just kind of witnessing you all interact for the last 45 minutes or so I've been on. It's been a joy to see, because it's like when you get people so open, it's like being amongst sages, with great wisdom. And obviously you all have great experience, and that feeling of just being part of a group of wise people is very empowering. And I think it's one of the most important things for health, is that we can be in a community of wise people. So congratulations on everyone being together in this and on a regular basis. And I hope when I grow up, I can also get to be part of such an esteemed group. So we'll just dive in here. I got a little presentation here. We'll just kind of run through. Okay, so meditation, it's a big word. There's a lot to it. There's many different forms of meditation out there, and we'll kind of talk about those different forms. From my perspective, I just see it as a silent mission critical technique for everybody to engage in some way, shape, or form, to really just engage in positively uplifting yourself as the basis for evolving and giving that value to the world. And really being able to protect and enhance yourself as a leader and whatever you're putting your attention on. So just a quick question here at the top is, how loved, happy, healthy, wealthy, fulfilled, free, and at peace do you want to be? And I think that's an important choice we all have to make. Is like, it's our choice. We have this beautiful gift of deciding as a human to decide what we want to really experience here. And this question came up when I'm here based in Kauai, Hawaii, and this is our new baby boy, Samuel, and he's 6.5 months old. And that's what when I look at him, I think, oh, wow, how much has he got to experience in this life, as we all have, and how will he choose to experience, and how much will he want to experience in terms of these things. And that we have this choice that we want to be able to use wisely. And I think meditation is a critical part in enhancing our capacity to do that. So my story, very quickly, is going from stress mode to monk mode. I was a competitive athlete right through my teenage years into my early 20s, won national, regional, provincial titles in cross country and track, also in rugby, and really wanted to be a professional athlete. And I pursued that very vigorously. Unfortunately, I fell short of qualifying from being a top 3 national athlete runner to just missing and qualifying for the World Junior Championships was like my stepping stone into being an international athlete. I missed by a couple of seconds in the 1500 meters. And after that, I got very sick for about 6 months. I was up most nights, coughing, just had a lot of respiratory problems, a lot of digestive problems, and really felt like I was an insomniac and had kind of lost my purpose in life at that point to be a professional athlete. But it made me realize, after I went through the typical numbing process of drinking more and eating more and dating whoever seemed interested, just to kind of numb that pain, that pain only got compounded, and that I really needed to reflect and kind of work out what was going on and how I can actually take care of myself in that process of striving for what I want. So it was a huge blessing and lesson in the end. it basically led me to learn to meditate. I learned a technique called TM, Transcendental Meditation, and had a very kind of profound experience for myself, in the sense that after that first meditation, I felt like I was literally walking on the clouds. And obviously I wasn't walking on the clouds, but that was the experience in my awareness. And the reason why is because I thought I was a pretty relaxed, sort of chill person, but I didn't realize there's layers to that. There's layers of depth and relaxation and silence. And that contrast was so great for me. It gave me that experience. So I literally flipped the script and went from being extremely outward and active, training, running 5 miles a day and putting my body through a lot, to wanting to be inward, to experience more of that inner fulfillment. And so, long story short, at the age of 25, I decided I wanted to meditate full time, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I wanted to do that for 1 year. I committed to 1 year to doing that. And after 1 year, I was loving it so much, enjoying it so much. I said, I want to keep expanding this. And so I did the second year and the third year, and the third year rolled into 5, and the 5 years rolled into 10. So I spent literally 10 years meditating full time. Part of that was in the Blue Ridge Mountains, North Carolina, as a center there, a big campus. We had a 7,000 acre property, had a men's campus on one end of the property and a women's campus on the other end of the property. And basically men and women from all different countries and ethnics and religions would come here just to experience being in that silence, 8 hours a day in meditation. And so it was a very transformative experience. And whoops. So basically monk mode, I'm going to use it in a different sense to what Inc. magazine does here, but monk mode's become more of a trending word these days, where we kind of just isolate ourselves in order to focus ourselves and get something important done. So that's definitely one aspect to it, but the deeper aspect to it is how our mind, how our brain physiology is operating. And that's what I want to kind of share with you, kind of under the hood of what monk mode's really about. So we're all dealing with stresses in this life, and if we get an overload of that stress, then it's going to restrict our full brain functioning. And stress will hijack this front part of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, which is basically the CEO of us. It's the CEO of the brain. It's where we make all our important decisions and planning and strategic kind of decisions. And so the more that stress is getting to that prefrontal cortex, it reduces our ability to feel connected to ourselves and understanding ourselves and others and the opportunities that we have in front of us. So this is an example of one of our clients leading a public listed company. He went from, feeling in that stress survival state where the company was, on the verge of not surviving, to gaining new clarity through his meditation practice, to the point that more creativity come and how to navigate things. And he felt like he had an unfair advantage because he was doing that. So the proven benefits of meditation are the obvious ones, kind of deeper inner calm. And this is all research-based. It's hundreds of studies that have documented this in terms of the physiology and the benefits. So there's deeper sense of calm, meaning less stress and anxiety, more clarity in the mind, which gives greater energy and awareness and creativity. And the heart, the mind and the heart are very intimately connected. In fact, I always like to say that the finest aspect of the mind is in the heart. So the more that we are unified in mind and heart, then the healthier we're going to be in terms of that coordination between our thinking and our feeling. And so there's many evidence-based studies done to show that meditation has a powerful impact on reducing depression, insomnia, PTSD, ADHD, and autism. So the biggest influence in terms of rest is that what they've found is that sleep will have an impact on reducing cortisol between 10 to 12%. A good meditation experience and technique will actually reduce cortisol 30 to 40%. And it's not that we replace meditation with sleep, but that meditation gives a unique form of restfulness that can actually be deeper than the deepest part of sleep. So we want to sleep because the body needs to sleep. but we also want to meditate in order to get a deeper access to that greater potential within ourselves. So meditation, we can think it's kind of a cop out, that we're not really engaged in society, when in actual fact, meditation is for action. And how it kind of impacts our action is it dissolves the stresses that maybe sleep hasn't gotten rid of. So if we meditate in the morning, then we're going to dissolve any leftover stress from the previous day. So we're coming to the new day with a fresh awareness. And with that dissolved stress, we have more energy, we have more clarity, which gives us new awareness to actually see better possibilities. I'm sure you've had that experience where you're kind of maybe struggling or working through something and you're bobbling around in your mind about it. And then all of a sudden you kind of let go, you relax about it, and then naturally, spontaneously, the right thought comes to you. And I actually believe that we're all having the right thought at the right time. Just depends on how settled our mind is. So meditation is really a vehicle to allow us to settle that mind and culture being in that settled state most of the time, if not all the time, eventually. So as we see better possibilities, we have more clarity to make accurate decisions. And as we make more accurate decisions, we've got more strength mentally and capacity-wise to handle anything. And then we're able to bring greater positive energy and power to inspire positive support from our environment. And as a kind of a side benefit bonus, it does help you remember where you left stuff. When you settle the mind naturally goes to the right answer. So it's a practical use. Now, meditation, in terms of an analogy, the analogy I like is it's like pulling back the arrow, in order for an arrow to hit a target, it has to be pulled back first. So when we're meditating, we're pulling back that arrow. We're pulling back our mind back to its source. And we'll talk about its source in a minute. And through that, we're able to put the mind or the bow and out the arrow, which is our thoughts, into a more coherent, silent, alert, dynamic state. Because when that arrow is pulled back, it's still, but there's a lot of energy and potential there. So when we're in this state, we're more likely to hit the target. And what we're doing is, through meditation, is helping us realize that we control the what we want to experience. We control the why we want to experience that. And we control the who, meaning who we want to be or who we want to work with to fulfill that experience. And the reason why we want to be clear on these is to influence the how and the when. Now, we don't always know how things are going to work out. That's kind of unknown. People can say, well, this is how I did it, but that's after the fact. Before we actually experience what we want, we never really know the how, right? Until we go through the experience. And then afterwards we say, oh, this is how we did it. So we want to, through meditation, be more aware of the what, why, and who, so we can influence the how and the when things happen. And we're in a state where there's less kind of binding influence on us in terms of the stress we may be under, the uncertainty, and the obstacles. And that's a very important place to be, because sometimes we get so attached to how things should be or how things should work out, when in actual fact, there's a greater organizing power working around us and through us that we want to be aware of, so we can be more relaxed as we're going through things. And therefore, when we're more relaxed, we're able to enjoy more. So meditation is really getting to this unseen potential that we all have. And if we look at, different levels of life, let's take the universe. We look out into the universe and the sky. Pretty much only about 10% of it is visible. The rest is invisible. We look at the brain, we see the neurons. We can, through neuroscience, see neuronal activity. What we don't see often through that is neural glia, which is actually what connects the different neurons, the 100 billion neurons in our brain physiology. And then on a DNA level, we can see through science the body code. What we don't see is the deeper mind code going on there. And like that in the mind, we're aware of what's going on at a conscious level through our senses. We often don't get more access to that preconscious, what's below that. So meditation gives us more access to that. So how meditation enlivens us in terms of our performance and our activity and whatever business we're engaged with. Obviously, we have a a culture that we're a part of, and we've got products and services that we may be sharing and delivering, and we have a strategy and we have execution. That's really happening on that conscious level. And then we have our ability to execute those things, which is really our ability to lead ourselves, to lead others. And that fundamentally comes through the accuracy of our decision making, which comes from our clarity, our coherence to unify things, our creativity to work through things, our capacity to handle things, and being a good catalyst. You know, everybody is a catalyst at something, at catalyzing some new experience. And being a strong catalyst will really help us capitalize on creating that experience that we want. So that's a more subconscious level of our mind. So the clarity and coherence gives a belief in ourselves. The creativity and the capacity gives a belief in the process, and being a good catalyst to capitalize and get the experiences we want is really a belief in others and outcomes. So meditation is strengthening this facet of ourselves, especially the belief aspect. It's hugely important because, as I said before, we don't always know how things are going to work out. That's why that belief factor has to be there. So what drives our ability to perform at this leadership and decision-making level is what I call CEO leadership consciousness. We're all a CEO of our own life in our own way. And the more that consciousness, that deeper silence or awareness, that deeper knowingness and knowledge, and to be in tune with nature, all the laws of nature that run our physiology and our environment and our interactions, then that's going to really support our leadership performance and our business performance and our activity. So this is happening on the level of consciousness. So we'll talk about consciousness in a second. So it's ultimately the unseen is driving the scene, right? And this is where meditation is very powerful and really enlivening that unseen value and believing that and helping it become seen. So meditation, as I mentioned, develops this consciousness to really support and enhance the conscious and the subconscious mind. So we take the analogy here of an iceberg. We know that 1/4 of that iceberg floats above the ocean. And that's really the conscious, logical, rational mind that perceives through our senses. And then we have that 3/4 under the water that's actually supporting the 1/4 that's above the water. And that's the subconscious beliefs and patterns and impressions we have and experiences. And then we have consciousness, which is the actual ocean. That iceberg cannot exist without the ocean. The ocean is the essential nature of that iceberg. So that's the consciousness, that silence, that awareness, those deeper laws of nature that's working, that enables us to function. And it's a field of all possibilities. And it's where we really get to that sense of inner fulfillment as the basis for outer fulfillment and achievement. So all change begins within ourselves, within our mind, within our heart, our DNA, and that silent gap between our thoughts. And this is where meditation takes us, into that gap between our thoughts. Any great book or literature has come from that deeper silence, right? And every thought is the right thought unless it gets distorted by stress or frustration or things like that. So we want to be as much as possible in that gap between our thoughts, so we pick up on the next thought on how to unfold things. So they say where there's absolute alertness, there's victory and protection, because we know when we are awake, when we are alert, when we are rested, we're more likely to be victorious and protected in whatever we're doing. So there's a great book here called World Class Brain. And what they've found studying a lot of top performers is that their brain, when they're performing at their best, making their best decision, has a unique style of functioning. And it works, as it's described here in summary of this book, is a more coherent, a more relaxed, a more wakeful, and a more efficient way. And when the brain is functioning like this, it has more intensely happy, fulfilling peak experiences, and we have a greater moral judgment in how to handle things. So there's 3 ways to activate more of what they found in these world-class people is global alpha coherence. Now, what this means in layman's terms is the ability of the brain to function coherently across all hemispheres of the brain in order to see bigger pictures, a bigger vision of things, and also the finer details and how to fulfill that vision. So they found 3 ways to activate more of this total brain functioning. in individuals. The first one was exercise because it activates mind-body coordination, which engages more of the brain. The second was music, especially playing music, because it engages you mentally, emotionally, and physically, and so therefore activates more of the brain. And then the most effective one, the most simple and direct one that actually activates the most global alpha coherence in the brain is meditation. And we'll talk more about techniques that do that in a second. So this is an example of, some of the clients that we work with being the eye of the storm. There's a lot of things and storms that can go on in our lives. And if we can just be that eye of that storm, then we're actually in a good place to handle those storms. There's an example of one of our business leaders who was doing a major deal for his company. A lot of stress, a lot of kind of multiple no-go hurdles and possibilities for things not working out. And personally, he felt like he was the eye of the storm. He was very calm and relaxed, and issues fell into place. And that's the best place to be if we've got problems or challenges, is to get into that eye of the storm, get into that calm, relaxed place so we can think clearly through them. So here's an example of what coherence is in terms of restful alertness, which is kind of an interesting coexistence of two things, being rested and being alert at the same time. And this is ultimately what meditation will culture in the brain. Is the ability to be relaxed and calm, but also alert and dynamic, like that arrow pulled back on the bow. So what happens in the brain when we're successfully meditating and allowing the mind to settle down is there's going to be an increase in alertness in the prefrontal cortex, this executive CEO of the brain, that front part of the brain. And this indicates that we've got alertness, awareness, inner awareness of what's going on in ourselves, outer awareness of what's going on in our environment. So there's an increase in alertness, and there's also increase in restfulness. And that restfulness comes because this amygdala, which is kind of the fight, flight, or freeze part of the brain, is actually more settled. It calms down. And when this is more calmer, then things like our respiration rate, our heart rate, our activity going on in ourselves just settles down, it slows down. This part of the brain is very fast. There's impulses coming there very quickly, and it needs to. If we've got under danger or threat, then we need to act fast. The problem is when there's not that alertness in the front part of the brain, this higher cortical area, then sometimes we can just get into an anxious state for no reason, right? It's like we're not able to interpret clearly these impulses coming from this impulse. So this is why, as we meditate, we culture this restful alertness so we can correctly interpret the impulses coming from this amygdala. So different states of awareness that we all fluctuate through, that we commonly experience during our day, is waking through our senses, dreaming, that illusory dream state, whether daydreaming or dreaming in sleep, and of course sleeping, which is basically the experience of no experience. Where we're just completely shut off to what's going on. Now, there's gaps between these states of waking, dreaming, and sleeping. Have you ever noticed when you wake up, you may be in a dream state, and then all of a sudden you're in this kind of waking state or witnessing state, and then you're awake, right? So there's gaps between waking and dreaming, dreaming and sleeping. And this gap is a fourth state of consciousness. So these are the relative three changing states of consciousness that we all fluctuate through. But then there's a fourth state of awareness, a transcendental fourth state of awareness, where we're literally the observer, we're the witness. You may have had the experience of witnessing a dream or witnessing yourself sleeping even. That's an indication of that fourth state of consciousness that's always there. It's a non-changing state of consciousness. And that's the state of consciousness we ultimately want to stabilize ourselves to be in most of the time, ultimately all the time, where we actually are in that restful alertness, whether we're waking, dreaming, or sleeping. So this is a great quote from Jeff Bezos, and the value of that state for making decisions. He basically says here, we can analyze things to make decisions. That's a path in itself, but he's found from his experience that making decisions with heart and intuition and guts has been the most powerful thing for him in making his most important decisions. And they've turned out to be the best decisions, because from that fourth state of consciousness, there's a more knowingness, And knowingness is more an advanced state of believing. We just know. We just know we have to do this. We know we have to say this, or we know we don't have to do this. And that's where we're having the right thought at the right time. So meditation will strengthen this sequential unfoldment of things, where we're taking action through our day, but in between these gaps between action, from one action to the next, from one thought to the next, there's this knowingness, this memory of the sequential unfoldment of what to do next, right? And so meditation allows us to be in tune with that kind of, it's not so much a memory of experiences, but a memory of knowingness, like this is how it should unfold. And you may have heard of the story of Thomas Edison and his metal ball, where he was inventing things, and often his best ideas would come from being in that fourth state of consciousness, that gap between his experiments and his thinking. So he would often go to sleep and he'd put this metal ball in his hand, and when he'd fall asleep, the metal ball would fall out, and that would kind of prompt him out of the sleep, but he'd also get access to that memory of what to do next. So that was his technique of getting there. This example of one of our clients who went from bringing 30-page presentations to single-page presentations because he just felt like he had that X factor when it came to, working through things. His mind was that much more simple and clear about things. So that was one of his benefits of meditating. So what we're strengthening when we're meditating is observing power. So in any process or any situation, there's observer, ourselves, the subject, there's a process, communication, and then there's the object that we want to influence, or the outcome that we want to experience. So as we strengthen ourselves, the leader of experiences, our observing power through meditation, by having more of this coherent, restful alertness, then we're better able to influence the process, which then better influences the object and the outcome. So this is where we want this developed CEO leadership consciousness of ourselves. And this is one example of a client who was struggling to break even with a few franchise stores, and through instigating meditation for himself and his team, he experienced more energy, more creativity, waking up earlier, being more in the now and more present than he'd never been before. And his staff was saying, it seems to be everything you're touching is turning to gold. And that's how things can be when we are in that very coherent state. So what's going on in the brain, as I mentioned earlier, is this restful alertness. Now, we talk about the amygdala as being the fight, flight, or freeze part of the brain. That's actually the lowest value of the amygdala. The highest value of the amygdala is vigilance. And that happens when there's this coherence between the amygdala and the impulses that come to it and this prefrontal cortex. So meditation strengthens this connection and relationship between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. So we can be more alert and vigilant, and to avert problems before they arise, so we don't have to spend time dealing with too many problems. So this is what we call a CEO leadership state, where you are in your most creative state, and you're also able to protect what you're creating in the process and yourself. So in terms of balance and how meditation kind of creates balance, it creates balance through orderliness. As we strengthen our order on the inside, the ability to get that clear signal from ourselves, we're able to create balance between the noise and the disorder that may be going on in our external environment. So meditation really strengthens that. This is an example of one of our clients who really was dealing with a lot of complexity in his industry, in the mining industry, a lot of noise, he calls it, and confusion, and meditation really supported him in kind of working through all that clutter and being able to focus on what's important. So in terms of the 3 different types of meditation that you can commonly find out there, is what we call focused attention meditation. And this is meditation that is really useful for concentration. So usually focused meditation, we're focusing on something inside of ourselves or something outside of ourselves. And that's very useful to strengthen what they call the gamma frequency in the brain, which is a very alert, excited frequency when we're focusing on things. The only problem with that is it keeps the mind in an active state. You're still engaged in doing something. The second type of meditations you'll find out there is what they call open monitoring or self-monitoring meditations, where we're monitoring our heart rate, our breath rate, our thoughts, our feelings, someone's guided words or music or something like that. And that's very useful for contemplating and processing things. And it activates this the beta coherence in the brain when we process things from what we're focusing on. And this is useful, again, for contemplating and processing. But again, the mind is still engaged and actively, doing something. So it's not in its most settled state. So those type of meditations are more mindfulness type meditations, useful in their own way. And then we have the third type of meditation you'll find out there is automatic self-transcending techniques. And these type of techniques activate more of that global alpha, that whole brain functioning, and give that experience of deeper relaxation and greater coherence in the brain and that restful alertness. So the one technique that I learned, TM, is one of the techniques that does that. There's a Qigong technique that I believe also does that. The difference they found between the two is that the Qigong technique took a little bit more time to master. It wasn't as easy. TM is a very simple, effortless, natural mental technique that basically uses the nature of the mind, like gravity, to want to be settled. The mind actually wants to be settled. Our body wants to be active. And so TM is, through its research, is found to be a very simple way of getting to that restful, alert state in a very easy, natural, effortless way. So what I want to do here is just give a quick demo of what happens in the brain when we meditate, when we're transcending and settling of the mind.
Did you know that over 60 million Americans
I want to skip the advertising here.
binge drink monthly?
So here we have an example of experience of Maharshi's Transcendental Meditation Program. I'm going to stop the screen for a moment here. You can see in the top, we have the blinking cursor, shows you the left front EEG. The second line shows you the right front EEG. And the bottom line shows you the oscillation from more to less of EEG coherence between the left and right frontal alpha EEG. You can see that the red line is at 0.9, where maximum is 1 or 100%. And so the scale goes from 0 to 100%. And we're going to continue now to see what happens when the person starts meditation. They're not meditating, and then they'll start in just a moment. Notice when they started meditation, it took them about less than half a second. Notice the high amplitude of local coherence in the front and the left and the right-hand side. And the similarity in the signals, just the waveforms look pretty similar. And the similarity is borne out by careful calculation of the EEG coherence. And let's just pause here. So we pause. You can see that right at the start of TM, coherence maximized and stayed most of the time above 90% or 0.9, which is extraordinary because the normal range of coherence is somewhere between 30 and 40% for an individual. This individual has very good brain coherence, even when they're not meditating, which is averaging around 60%. And when they start meditating within less than a second, they go to that very high level.
Suffering is dominating life everywhere. Tension, and stress, and strain
Where they
are
go?
increasing in every country, whether it's a affluent society or a developing nation. But suffering is everywhere.
Oops.
It is possible for every man to go deep within and saturate his conscious mind with inner happiness.
There's a bit of a bonus there. Okay, so I just wanted to share just some experiences of people and the value of meditation in their lives in a professional setting. I'll just play this for you.
Meditation, more than any other factor, has been the reason for whatever success I've had.
Physical and mental energy is the greatest riches of human life. And TM, it's like a free account of an endless amount of it.
It's not only what it does for me personally, it has an impact on the people who are around you.
It gives me a wider base from which to see more opportunities.
There's a peacefulness that I don't think I've ever achieved before. I can't do without it.
The busier we are, the more we need that center in time. And from that place, be much more effective at what we're doing.
I had my best month in the business 2.5 months after I started TM. Best month in 25 years, low investment, high return.
So just to wrap it up here, it's just another example here. If you know anything about tennis, Novak Djokovic just basically won the most Grand Slams of any tennis player in history. And he had this great quote about, "I stopped thinking too much about what could happen and rely on my physical and mental strength to play the right shots at the right time." And he's a very strong advocate of mental development, and I know he meditates as one of the aspects. So in terms of the individual and what we're doing in affecting the collective coherence, as we increase our individual coherence, it actually has a byproduct effect on the collective coherence, because consciousness is a field, an all-pervasive field, just as the ocean pervades everything. It's like the more that we're able to enliven and connect to consciousness, the more it has a ripple effect, as that lady mentioned, on our environment. And so they've actually found that as groups of people, as we meditate in a group and together, as you guys do, then it actually has a ripple effect on the environment around us, right? And so you can actually look at this from physics point of view. When you get a coherent superconductor, it's able to kind of keep at bay those other influences, those external influences, those disruptors that may be going on in our environment. So we're able to protect ourselves and continue to move forward. And even like that with a country, the more there's internal coherence within a country, because there's internal coherence between people, then the more those negative influences from the outside are less able to affect how that country functions, or that city, or that nation. So there's actually been scientific research on this. There's a study that was done on a group of about 1,600, I think, that was meditating every day between January 2007 and December 2011. And what they found, and this was in the US, it was in the Midwest at a university called MIU, where they actually encourage meditation as part of the curriculum. And they found that when this group was together, meditating together, that there was a reduction in basically US homicide rate during that time. So they did a baseline before, then during the experiment, and then just after. And then once those numbers had gone down, that kind of rate of homicide started increasing. So it was documented in these science journals, which have quite some rigor when it comes to, statistical stringency that they need to have to actually, qualify as a study in those journals. So in terms of strengthening and supporting your understanding of meditation in terms of its practicality in making decisions in the world, we wrote this book called The Science of Protection, Making High Pressure Impactful Leadership Decisions That Protect and Enhance You and Everyone. And we felt this was necessary because a lot of leadership is very focused on achievement, but they also find that they can achieve and then somehow that achievement can get disrupted, or they achieve, but they can't protect that achievement and they can't build on that achievement. And that's generally because there's not enough coherence there to do that. And a leader's primary role is to protect themselves and their people and the progress. So it's no good achieving something and then something happening and either our health or relationships or some influence comes in that disrupts that, and literally it becomes a zero-sum game of achievement. We haven't really progressed. And so we felt it was important to write a book that kind of got leaders back to that value of protection in their leadership. So just wanted to kind of sum it up based on that question we started off with, is that as we're developing consciousness through meditation, it enables us to have more capacity to give and receive more love, more happiness, create more health, wealth, fulfillment, freedom, and peace, so that we can be more of a positive influence on ourselves, on others, even when it's difficult, even when, maybe people in our environment or ourselves are struggling to deal with things. It gives you more of that centered base in which to handle things. And so we can create and we can enjoy anything that's going on and feel more like the universe or nature, life has our back, when we're taking action, because we are connected to that consciousness, which is giving us the right thought and the right impulse at the right time. So that's what I know about meditation. If you guys got any questions, happy to hear them all.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think Diana and then Patricia have questions.
Yeah, Diana.
I'm full of questions, and I'm wondering if we might have your contact info so that
sure
we might talk, because I'm really excited about this.
We'll send it out by email to the group.
Thank you.
You'll send some material to Mary Grace to send to everybody.
Yeah.
I'll send you a copy of this slide deck and my contact information.
Yeah, I appreciate it was it's a great presentation, and I hope everybody enjoyed that. So questions, Diana.
Diana went already.
Yeah, I had another question, but I'd like to give.
What?
Okay. Any other questions?
Patricia's good. Okay.
Actually, I have a comment to make. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
I had the chemotherapy in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I could not remember my dreams.
Hmm.
And during the pandemic, I went to a mindfulness retreat in Zoom, all on Zoom. And for 4 days, we meditated several times. We did yoga. And 2 days after I finished that retreat, I remember my dream.
Wow.
I mean, the effect, it was just so amazing. It was just, so the changes, I always read about the changes, but to experience it myself, it was incredible. And then I joined a group, a text message group that they said, hey, I have 10 minutes. Anybody that wants to jump in to meditate for 10 minutes, join me. Mm-hmm. So we did that several times a day. And after the retreat, I remember my dreams like 2 a month. And after joining this group that we will have short meditations, several meditations a day, I started to remember them like 3 or 4 a week. Nice. So it's just, but I do mindful meditations. So now with your presentation, I will.
So what is your question?
She just want to comment.
I said I was going to make a comment, not a question.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. I will
Ramon, I do
investigate.
Ramon, I do have one specific question. A number of members of this group work with an inner city group supporting young men, I believe, called Homeboys.
Yep.
And I was interested if your group ever works with sort of challenged inner city youth or any sort of things like that. Do you ever work with people who are in
Yeah,
that kind of
there's
situation?
David Lynch Foundation works with school kids, and basically they're teaching meditation to especially inner city, schools that are got a rough environment. And if you go to davidlynchfoundation.org, you can see all the documentation on the effect that meditation has had on those kids and how they function.
Mac Davis is dialing in from Nigeria, and he is doing some similar work there.
Yeah.
So we got some people all around on that.
Yeah. Just on Patricia's experience, it's basically, I mean, it's fantastic you had that experience, and as you see, meditation, the impact can be very quick. I experienced that. It's like very quick. Once the mind gets the experience of that consciousness, that deeper consciousness, so many things get corrected very quickly. And you had an experience of regaining memory, of that eternal memory of how things should work inside of ourselves. Like you connected back to that source intelligence. And so that's why you had such a profound experience. It's great that you recognize that.
I have a comment. So
yeah,
for about 20 years, we worked with CEOs and their teams to, improve performance. But a key part of our process was teaching them to meditate.
Yep.
We called it Be Here Now. And after every, if we did a teamwork or an accountability or mutual support, whatever we were doing, at the end, we would put them into this meditative state and, deepen their understanding of the concept. Now, we did a survey with our clients over 20 years, and two things stood out. One, their favorite module was Be Here Now. Now, this CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, right? And two, our clients defeated their competition consistently by having higher levels of in their marketplace. So that's just my testimonial for meditation. So
yeah, I love that one, Paul. It's just amazing how we got all these peripheral things, but the most important thing is our mind. And I don't know what they're saying now, but I'm hearing like 90 to 95% of how we experience life and success in life comes from the mind. So if we take care of that, then pretty much everything else is a byproduct, But if we haven't taken care of that, we don't feel fulfilled, we don't feel relaxed, we don't feel at peace, we don't feel as coherent and creative. And so therefore, how can we perform as well?
Right. So we are running out of time. I think we only have time for one more question, then we're going to have to move on. So one final question.
Tim and Mary Grace both have their hands up.
Mary Grace?
I'm just hoping that in the information you send me to share with the group, that perhaps you have a class or something you'd recommend. I would really appreciate that myself.
Yeah. I'll recommend an introduction lecture on TM. Just free intro. We can get all the information about it, what it is, what it's not. It's just a very simple, natural mental technique that's backed by over 600 scientific studies. And once you hear the introduction, you'll feel whether it's good for you or not. If you want to do it.
Thank you so much, Raamon. This is really wonderful talk.
So someone just said, Javier, what mantra do you suggest on using to begin? So in TM, they give you a personal mantra. It's personalized to you based on who you are. And so there's a whole different range of mantras. Mantra means mind vehicle. A mantra is just a mind vehicle. And the sound that they give you in TM it has no meaning. It's just a sound. It's used for its vibrational quality that allows the mind a vehicle to settle down with, and it supports that. So that's why it's best to get personal instruction rather than trying to learn from a book or off the internet or anything like that, because then you get to know how to use that mantra and use it properly to get the best benefits.
Tim has his hand up.
Tim.
Yes, thank you. This was really excellent. I started my meditation in TM and went on all the way through to the city program. I still practice it. I like all the data that supports this. And basically what you're saying, when your mind settles down into that wide open state, where there's not the stress and so forth, what comes forth is love and compassion and caring and connection. And it works all across the board, all the way from, CEOs, just to everyday people. And please put in some websites in that information you're going to send out so we can reconnect again.
You bet. Awesome.
Awesome. Please say thank you to our speaker today for Raamon Newman. It was excellent.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Raamon.
Thank you for having me. It's been a joy.